Welcome to Sex Ed with DB. I'm your host, DB. Let's get into it. In a world that constantly encourages you to change, it's bold to just be yourself. Sexual expression and satisfaction are different for everybody, so rather than conforming to others, focus on falling in love with who you are. Lion's Den sources the very best products to help you find what you like and help you feel confident expressing your sexual desires. You can get 15% off in-store and online using code SEXEDWITHDB at lionsden.com to begin exploring everything about yourself. Follow them on social at Lions Den Adult on Instagram and TikTok. When it comes to anal sex, what comes to mind? If you're a beginner like so many of us out there, maybe you feel scared, unsure, or just plain uneducated. Future Method can help with that. Founded by a doctor and anal sex expert, Future Method develops science-backed products and non-judgmental doctor-led education to maximize pleasure, eliminate injury, and empower the way people choose to play in the bedroom. They even have a blog started by the gay community and now for everyone that puts education at the forefront on topics both popular and taboo. Use code SEXEDWITHDB for 15% off at futuremethod.com. Finally, we can travel again. If you're like me, I bet you want a little pleasure while you're away, but can't fit your entire sex toy collection in your carry-on, huh? Say hello to the Magic Wand Mini. Born into such a famous family, this little wand has quite a reputation to uphold. Challenge accepted. Offering big power, multiple speeds, and unsurpassed quality, the full-featured Magic Wand Mini is more than simply a smaller sibling. It's here to create a legacy all its own. Want to win a Magic Wand Mini for your next trip or staycation? Go to sexedwithdb.com/magicwand to learn more. When you're traveling, you don't have access to your amazing sex goodies stash. So, you start to pack your lube for sexy time in your toiletry bag, and when you open your bag back up, the lube you packed, of course, spills all over your toothbrush, makeup, and floss picks. Enter a brand new product from Uberlube that will get your lube to your destination without spillage. They're new good-to-go travelers, perfect for your purse, pocket, gym bag, or carry-on luggage. The Good-to-Go Traveler features the same Uberlube product in a discreet aluminum traveler that comes in 6 colors. Try Uberlube and their Good-to-Go Traveler now with code SEXEDWITHDB for 15% off at uberlube.com.
Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Jennifer Lincoln, board-certified OBGYN, and you may know me from social media where I spend a lot of my time educating about everything reproductive health. This podcast is called Let's Talk About Down There, and that's what I'm doing. I am talking about down there with no shame, no stigma, a lot of fun, and a lot of education. And why? Because when we talk about these things, we educate and we empower ourselves. Call in, leave a question, and know that it's okay to have questions about your body, and we're going to answer them.
Hello, folks. How's everyone doing today? Happy Wednesday. Today we have an amazing guest on. I hope that you love his energy and his pizzazz just as much as I did. His name is Alex Hall, and he is the creator of the Bottoms Digest. And we get all into anal sex and bottoming and talking about what foods to eat or not to eat, potentially, depending on your body before bottoming. And we dispel a couple of really important myths around bottoming. And I think that for me as a sex educator, it was really, really important to hear this from Alex, who is a gay man, who is an amazing chef, and who is someone who's been tinkering with over 60 recipes at this point when it comes to things to eat before bottoming, and just around the idea that everyone should and can be enjoying food even when it comes to having sex and having anal sex. And I just think it was a really illuminating episode. So I hope you really enjoy it. Before we get into that, just want to remind you all about the Curious Sex Ed episodes. And if you want to ask an anonymous sex ed question, check out our link tree. And if you want to support us, check out buymeacoffee.com/CuriousSexEd. And if you like this episode and you can't buy me a coffee, I really, really hope that you'll consider sharing it with a friend. Even right now, you can pause me and you can click the copy link and share it with somebody who you think would also really like this episode, because sharing it helps increase our audience and gets the word out. So I hope you'll consider doing that. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this amazing episode with Alex Hall. Alex, welcome to the podcast. What's up?
Hey, I'm so happy to be here. I love you so much, so I'm so stoked.
The feeling is very mutual. We are pretty new but close, tight friends, I would say, already.
Yes.
There are people that you meet from the internet, and sometimes you're just kind of like, I want to be friends with this person. They seem very fun and cool and hip and nice, and I
Yes.
want to know you.
Oh my God. Thank you so much. That means the world to me. I'm like, I feel the same about you. It's just that smile. You got that
Oh,
smile that's just like, it's so welcoming. And it's like, I still can't believe you lived in New York, because people in New York just don't smile as much as you.
because there are many rats that we're very sad
Yeah.
about there, and the weather's sometimes shitty. But
Yeah.
yeah, New York, that's interesting. Yeah, I find that my time in New York, and I'm a New Yorker, like I was born and raised on Long Island, though, not the city, not a city kid, like a
I
cool
like that
kid.
you threw that in there.
You have to. You can't say that you have city cred when you don't.
Yeah. People
But
will pull that out.
yes, but yeah, I think that I'm a pretty friendly, sarcastic New Yorker, I would say. That's how and you're kind of a
Yes.
friendly, sarcastic Southerner.
Yeah, I'm from Houston, and Houston has its own reps, and I would say that um, I am totally the bless your heart kind of
Yes.
gal. So like shady sound bites that no one really, everyone's like, "Oh my God, he's so sweet." I'm like, "You didn't even listen to what I just said." So thank you for that. We'll take nice today. We'll take
We'll
that.
take nice, we'll take sweet. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to the masses, tell people who you are and what the hell it is that you do here.
Work, absolutely. So my name is Alex Hall. I'm the host of The Bottoms Digest. The Bottoms Digest is my food channel where I teach you all things anal, really, especially about how to eat before engaging in anal sex. But it really has stemmed from my background of lots of careers that I've had. I've been working in reproductive rights as a graphic and web designer, as well as a video editor for the last 5 years. I'm actually still in the reproductive rights movement currently. And before that, I was a bartender at queer clubs and
Oh,
bars.
no way. That's cool.
Yeah, so in a way, I was kind of hosting the club all night.
Right.
And I think that's where I really learned how to speak a lot of queer lingo as well. And I really learned how to vibe and work with drag queens a lot,
A good
and
skill.
serving customers, right? The best skill,
Yeah.
honestly. That's like, talk about survival skills. And but I've always loved to cook more than anything. I've cooked every single day for probably like 2 decades now. I'm 30 years
Really?
old. Yeah, I just love it. My whole family loves to cook. I was
Mm.
always taught this. I've eaten out so few times in my life, for real. So that's kind of where the Bottoms Digest is, like this intersection of my past as a bartender, my love for cooking, my love for body autonomy and reproductive rights and fighting for it. And the Bottoms Digest is really just like, it's I don't want to be too political, but it is a political movement in itself, because it is meeting the moment with sex ed and combating a lot of crap out there. Quite
Yes.
literally combating crap, now
Yeah,
that I think
yeah,
about
yes. We're talking about bottoming, so we're combating crap in, metaphorically, physically, literally. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I really like that background that you're sharing. That you've been cooking for 2 decades daily, because I think
Yeah.
that in and of itself makes a lot of sense. It comes through when I see your passion for your
Oh, I'm so
recipes.
glad.
Yeah, and I think that pairing that with reproductive rights is the most authentic way that you can create content that you want to create.
Absolutely, because I feel that if sex ed was even half where it needs to be in the school system, that queer sex ed would not be where it needs to be still. And because of the nature of bottoming, there is a major culinary aspect and a gut
Yes.
health aspect that goes into bottoming. And like, for real, I just really don't think that even if sex ed was where it needs to be, it would not include that. Like, it just was a light bulb moment for people when they landed on my page, like, oh yeah, food really matters for
Yeah,
this.
totally. And I think even as, a sexually fluid educator myself, but mostly, not been discussing anal sex or not having anal sex personally, I'm sure that that really biases my own sex education. And so I'm really glad to be able to talk to you about this today, because it's
Oh
not only
yes.
your lived experience, but because you have this experience with other queer people. And namely, I don't know if a majority of your audience are cis men or people with penises. I'm sure we can get into that. But I think that it's
Totally.
really important to have a speaker on behalf of buttholes everywhere who have anal
Yes.
sex, who, everything there is to know about bottoming, which is why this is a whole kind of anal sex bottoming related episode today.
Work. That's what I'm here
You're
for,
in.
girl.
And for that reason, you're in.
Yes.
So let's start from the beginning, from what is bottoming, right? Like, we want to know from you, what does that word mean? Tell us the queer lingo that you're referring to. Let's make it accessible to all.
Yeah, totally. So bottoming, funny enough, bottoming can be a verb or a noun. There are people that totally like identify as a bottom. I try to use it as both. I'm trying to move, funny enough, away from using it as a noun so much because that puts people in boxes. But in the verb sense, in the most literal verb sense, it just refers to being on the receiving end of anal sex, aka the person being penetrated. So this really doesn't have anything to do with masculinity, femininity, who's who in the relationship, nothing like that. It's just simply a matter of sexual desire and preference.
Right.
So
It's like, do you
that's
got a butthole? You can bottom.
yeah, seriously. There's a lot of them.
A lot of
FYI,
buttholes.
there's a lot of buttholes on this planet. So that's just the most literal sense of bottoming. But in the noun sense, like, there are people that definitely, like, I am a bottom. This is my 100% sexual preference. This is all I want. But there's lots of people that just want to bottom that don't identify as being a bottom.
Yeah, totally. And when you first started the Bottoms Digest, you as a queer person, were you kind of coming from this idea of there's not really content like this out there and therefore I need to make it? Or what was kind of like the beginnings of the Bottoms Digest?
Yeah. So a couple things, really. Like I said, I've been cooking for 2 decades. So I lost my virginity. I was very blessed to grow up as an openly gay person, and I lost my virginity when I was 16 to a man. So I guess to a teenager.
Sure.
Not. I don't.
To a
I'm not trying
teen
to be
boy.
like. Yeah. I'm like, wait. But I lost my virginity when I was 16. And I think that I was lucky back then because I probably cooked for myself that day. I probably didn't go to Taco Bell or something. I probably just made myself lunch or dinner, or I don't really remember what time of the day I lost my virginity, but I think that plays a major aspect. But I think my biggest inspirations for starting the channel was, number one, I am my customer. I personally prefer to bottom in the bedroom. I am a verse bottom, but bottoming is what I go for the most. It's just what I like. And I love to cook, I like to eat, and I like to get fucked. So guess what? I'm not really willing to give up any of those. And I never have, and I never will. And like, I didn't even find out about douching until I was 22. I'd been having anal sex for 6 full years at that point,
Wow.
having never really douched. So the second biggest inspiration was when I actually, funny enough, lived in New York City. When I lived in New York, my husband and I had to reevaluate our budget for obvious
Of
reasons.
course.
And meat in the city, we lived in Manhattan, and meat in the city was so expensive. I could not believe it. So we didn't cut it out of our diets completely, but we did cut meat out of our diet about half of the week, and we went more plant based. And I was immediately seeing the results in both the bathroom and the bedroom, having a
Okay.
more plant based diet. So I was more regular. I was getting way more natural fiber. I wasn't having to take fiber supplements as often. Fiber supplements still fill in the gap, which is great, but it's better to get it from natural fiber when possible. But that was making prep a snatch. And with just a little bit of ingenuity, oh God, I can never say that word. I'm from the South, y'all. Don't give me, you have to remind. I also am like, I usually wear Invisalign, so my tongue slips up. But with a little bit of
You got
ingenuity,
it.
I didn't feel like I was really sacrificing. I was trying to make these dishes taste as close as possible to the original. So when I was making like my vegan cheese sauce, I wanted something that replicated like Trailer Park Velveeta cheese, like
Sure.
that I grew up on. So that was kind of the goal there, was to make these things taste as close as possible to the original and not like vegan options. So that was kind of when I was like, wow, this could really help a lot more people. It's never really about giving up stuff. It's not really about like, oh, go vegan, go. It's really just about getting more plant diversity into your lifestyle and getting more plant diversity into your day to day so that you have an overall happier gut and overall happier time bottoming and preparing to bottom and stuff like that.
Absolutely. And I think like a couple things that I want to say off the back of that. One, I really like that you use humor to really disarm
Yeah.
people. Like you start your videos with like, hey, you starving sluts, are you trying to eat the
Yeah.
best mac and cheese of your goddamn life? Like who doesn't want to see
Work.
that video? It's very funny. Your video editing skills and the way that you shoot
Thank
it,
you.
it's phenomenal. So just like hats off to you for that. But I really like this idea of, hey, like we don't want you to be giving anything up. I think there is this whole idea of, oh, you need to not eat at all, or just, oh, like I'm just
Totally. Ugh,
eating ice cubes. Like I've
tired.
seen, yeah, videos of you saying that.
So tired.
And I think that that whole idea does feed into, no pun intended, the horribleness of diet culture in general, right? There's this
Yeah,
idea of like,
absolutely.
you have to starve yourself, don't eat anything if you're going to get intimate with somebody else. And it's just not healthy to think of it like that. And it doesn't taste good to do
No.
that. So I love that about your stuff.
Thank you so much. That again comes back from my intersection of my previous careers in politics, in reproductive rights, and in bartending. When I was a bartender, my tips would double the sassier I was all night. I'd be like, here's your goddamn drink, asshole. And they would tip me
That's
$20.
really funny.
But if I was like, here's your drink, it'd be $5 or something.
Sure.
So, especially with the drag queens, the shadier I was with the drag queens, the more they would love me, funny enough. So, when I was doing this content for the Bottoms Digest, that was super important for me to make it humorous, because what I've noticed in reproductive rights was that yes, we're all pissed. We are all mad about the state of things, but how are you making people digest these things, pun intended, in a more light manner? Like how, like some of our favorite teachers that we all remember were some of the funniest teachers in elementary, middle school, high school, college. They broke down that wall immediately and invited you into a world to come learn with them. So that's why it's really funny. It's really important to me to make it funny at all costs.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you're right. I think I try to do the same thing with sex ed with DB of like being
Yeah.
silly. Like everyone can relate when they're laughing about something. And especially when we're talking about anal sex, which can be a topic that people might be really shy about. I know especially straight people, like straight women, maybe that's not their domain as much. So it's really important to kind of break down these barriers, like you said,
Yeah.
and make it accessible to as many people as possible.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, sex is kind of silly. Like, it's kind of
It's weird.
like, it can be intimate and whatnot, sure, but it's also really silly and dumb sometimes too. Like, you're taking this dumb organ and putting it in
Slapping
this
it.
other organ. Yeah.
Slapping it together.
Slapping it. And like, I always tell people, like some of my friends that ask me about questions about bottoming and stuff, just as friends outside of the channel and stuff, I'm always like, I can't believe we're not laughing more in the bedroom half the time, because it's just like, switching positions half the time can be the most awkward, funny thing.
Totally.
So it's, just making it funny makes it relatable too. It just brings it full circle.
It
So
really does. You're right. I wonder if you can talk to me a little bit about some myths, maybe like a top one or top three that you can maybe dispel for folks when it comes to specifically talking about bottoming and food.
absolutely. Okay. Yes. So myth number one is, you had just made this comment actually, was you got to start before bottoming. My channel proves that that is not the case. In fact, Alex Hall, when he was 16 to 22, proves that that was the case. I had never starved. I didn't even know that was a joke until my early 20s. I'm 30 years old right now. And that is just not the case. Dr. Carlton, who's a gay GI doctor based out of California, I love him. We're good friends at this point. We've actually done quite a few articles together at this point with the press. He talks all the time about the gastrocolic reflex, which is a signal your brain sends to your rectum to empty out when you eat food. And he mentions that you shouldn't eat 30 minutes to an hour before bottoming, especially if you have IBS, because the gastrocolic reflex is a lot stronger in people that have IBS, which makes a lot of sense when you say these things out loud. But that's definitely not a full ass day. So that's myth number one, is like, you do not need to starve all day. That is just simply not how digestion works.
Mm-hmm.
What you're eating right now can take a full day to reach the end of its course into the toilet. So there's no reason to starve all day. That's why my channel focuses fully on foods that make you feel uncomfortable, because gas and bloating can hit you really quick.
Yes.
If your body does not agree with something, you will know pretty quickly. So that's myth number one. I think myth number two is that certain foods are off limits. And I'm actually reading a book by Tim Spector right now called Food for Life. I love him. He's an epidemiologist, which, for people that don't know what that is, epidemiologists investigate patterns and causes of disease and injury in large populations. And Tim Spector, he specifically specializes in diet for large populations. And he's in the United Kingdom. He's British. But what I always like to say is there's 8 billion of us on this planet. That means there's 8 billion goddamn different guts and butts on this planet.
True.
And Tim Spector, he really talks about the complexity of food and how each one of our guts is truly unique to us. So I've kind of pivoted with the Bottoms Digest in the last year, where like I remind people that these are recipes. Everyone knows that recipes are guidelines. You can change a recipe to however you want. There's a reason recipes say salt to taste. Like some of us like salty food, some of us don't like salty food. And with that being said, some of us react differently to foods. In fact, all of us react very differently to every single food. So take my stroganoff, for example, my stroganoff recipe on the Bottoms Digest. If you are sensitive to mushrooms, leave them out. Sometimes it's that simple to just hone in on an ingredient that you see in a recipe and be like, oh yeah, my body does not like that thing. The amount of times I'll get a comment and be like, oh, I saw this recipe you made and there's onions in it. I can't do onions. And I'm like, okay, girl, don't do onions.
Just don't. You're the one that said it. Don't do it.
Yeah. I'm like, leave it out then. And people are like, well, oh my God, but I'll miss the flavor. I'm like, okay, well, you can only lead a horse to water, babe. But Tim Spector, he's great. He reminds you that there's a lot of nuance in ingredients and foods. And with what you just said about diet culture, we don't know anything about diet and food. And that's what I really like about Tim Spector, is he is a scientist reminding us that we just recently found out about all the chemicals that are in food, like the natural chemicals. So we are still learning about these things. So it's a big reminder, a big important thing to remember, that recipes are guidelines and you need to adapt them to what works for your body. So that was a long myth number two.
Yeah,
but
it's good.
My favorite about, I think, this last one, myth number 3, is it's specifically about bottoming rather than food. And that it's about, I actually just posted a video today on my social medias about this. It's that when an accident happens in the bedroom, you're supposed to be embarrassed about it. You're like, it's supposed to be this like big thing that everything needs to stop. And like, you're supposed to feel all this shame and all that. But that is absolutely wrong. Accidents will happen. You are literally fucking an ass. Like I cannot say it any differently than that. You are fucking a butt. So what my godmother always tells me, she is an East Texas lesbian. She loves my channel. She is so proud of it. She always tells me, when I tell her this specifically about the messes in the bedroom and whatnot, she always says, don't get in the pool if you're afraid to get wet.
Totally. That's it. Yeah.
And I say it all the time on my channel now. our society and media especially never highlights this reality. Like Brokeback Mountain, that movie,
There's gonna be
surely they
some
had an
poopy in there for
accident.
sure.
Surely they had an accident. Two cowboys in the mountains for days and days
Wow,
with
fair.
no access to plumbing. Let's be fucking real.
Wow, you're really
Like,
putting this all in a new perspective for me.
let's be fucking real. Like, he spit in his hand, fucked Jake Gyllenhaal, and then cut. Like,
Right.
that we never, ever, ever see the next part. So that really, like, I don't even say accidents can happen. They will happen. Every single person will have 1,000. I was like, one accident, that's not enough. You'll have plenty. And the only real answer of fixing this is learning how to be more supportive and communicative in those moments. So
that's a good
those are some
one.
of the big myths. Yeah.
Yeah, I did see your video on this and I really thought it was really funny. You said LO fucking L if you think that that's like the worst thing that can happen to you.
Yeah, for anyone that's listening, there was just this guy that posted on TikTok that was like the most embarrassing thing that'll ever happen to a bottom, and it was an accident in the bedroom. And I was like, bitch, there are way more embarrassing. Have you even tried to apply for a home loan in 2023? Like, there's way more embarrassing things. Like, grow up.
Grow up. Yeah, there's gonna be some poop, like, and that's okay. Like, if you have access to a shower, just go ahead and shower it off and maybe, talk about it. And
Yeah.
just know that it might happen.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Talk about it. Talking about it is so important. Like, when whoever's topping, and again, I'm not trying to use that language of the top.
Right.
Whoever's topping, when they pull out and they see a little poo-poo or a little mess or whatever, they can talk to whoever's bottom and be like, hey, are you feeling okay?
Right.
Are you feeling comfortable? Is everything, like, because that can also be very painful for whoever's bottoming. So it's important to communicate in those moments. Be like, how are you feeling right now? And if they're saying like, oh, now that you mention it, it kind of hurts. That's a big, like, major flag right there, that you took that time to stop and talk to each other. But pulling out and seeing a little poop on a condom or your dick if you're going bareback or anything, and then freaking out about it is unreal.
Yes.
Unreal.
Totally.
In fact,
go ahead.
In fact, you should kick that person out of your goddamn house.
Get the fuck out of here. If you don't like my poop, then get now. I mean,
right?
It is a good reminder though that, like, hey, if you're gonna experiment with this, I mean, if it's the same, to me, it's really the same thing as thinking about, like, if you're gonna have sex on your period, like, okay, like, there's gonna be blood, there's gonna be discharge, there's gonna be parts of the uterus that are going to be there. Like, you just need to be okay with it. Maybe put down a towel, maybe talk about like what that might feel like or whatever. But things.
Put down a red towel if you're a really good planner.
That's genius. Really, if you have enough shades of red towels, depending on where you are in your cycle, can look very different reds. But like, good point of, like, if it hurts, then maybe stop, maybe check in, but know that these liquids and solids potentially are normal, and that you should get used to it.
Yeah, like when you take a jar of water and you try to jam something in it and all the water overfills, that's happening to your body.
Right. Totally.
So that's why it hurts. You're having an overflow, it's pressurized, it hurts. Right. So it's good to check in.
Yeah, and good reminder, like, use a lot of lube, like, make sure you're tons and more than you think you need.
For real. I'm like, you could never have enough. When people ask me, like,
endless.
Well, how much is too much? I'm like, endless. There is no too much, especially with anal sex where you do not get wet.
Yeah.
There is no such thing as too much.
Yeah.
In fact, the funny sounds you hear from too much lube, that's a good sign.
Right.
That means you've used plenty now.
Yes, exactly.
The squeaking, the, like, mini fart sounds, those are perfect. That means you were finally using enough.
Want to win your very own Magic Wand Mini? If so, keep on listening. Ooh, it's kind of fun to have your attention. Okay, but let's get into it. Magic Wand, aka the best-selling wand vibrator of all time, has partnered with Sex Ed with DB to give some magic wands away to some lucky winners. How can you participate and enter to win? We want to hear your best magic wand story. Maybe something funny or silly comes to mind? Maybe the magic wand unlocked a world of pleasure for you like it did for me. Whatever it is, we want to hear your story. Go to sexedwithdb.com/magicwand to learn more and see how you could win your very own Magic Wand Mini. Let's talk about lube and condoms. Something important to know is that oil-based lube is not to be used with condoms because the oil can cause the condom to break or tear, which would defeat the purpose of using it. Thank goodness for Uberlube. Uberlube is latex compatible, so it's safe and effective to use with condoms. But wait, there's more. Dispensing 2 drops of Uberlube inside a condom and a measured pump outside will increase pleasure. What are you waiting for? Use code SEXEDWITHDB for 15% off at uberlube.com. I'm sure you've heard the phrase bottoming before, but do you really know what it entails? Pun intended. When it comes to anal sex, there's typically a top and a bottom, and any combination of the two. The top is defined as the insertive partner, and the bottom is defined as the receptive partner. If you're interested in anal play or bottoming, the 3 major muscles in our butt need to be relaxed for complete and successful entry. After you've started to experiment with the tip of a finger or a butt plug with lots and lots of lube, you may want to slowly graduate to a pre-bottoming anal training routine to ensure the best experience. Enter the glass anal dilator set with 3 gradual dilators, small, medium, and large plugs from Future Method. And an important fun fact, an anal surgeon designed these glass dilators so you know that he's got your back and your bottom. To learn more about bottoming and the glass dilator set, go to futuremethod.com and use code SEXEDWITHDB for 15% off at checkout. Let me tell you about one of my favorite pleasure product retailers out there, Lion's Den. If you haven't heard about Lion's Den before, I can't wait to tell you about them. Lion's Den opened its first retail facility in Columbus, Ohio in 1971. That's right, over 50 years ago. Since then, they've grown to more than 50 outlets throughout the US, building their reputation on high-quality products, low prices, and a knowledgeable sales staff who can help you find the perfect toy. One of the many things I love about Lion's Den is that they advocate for a sex-positive perspective on intimacy and sexual well-being, and strive to break the stereotypes and stigma surrounding sex by providing comprehensive educational resources to empower everyone to enjoy life to the fullest. They are simply amazing. Lucky for you, Lion's Den is giving my listeners an exclusive discount of 15% off your purchase, in-store and online with code SEXEDWITHDB at lionsden.com. What are you waiting for? Get your amazing Lion's Den toy now. Transitioning from poop to food, as you do,
Every day.
every day. I'd love for you to talk to me about some of your favorite recipes that you created, and
So hard.
I also want to talk about maybe the process, because I know that we've talked separately about this, and your process for testing these recipes is really, really amazing. So I'd love for you to
Thank
shout
you.
that out.
Yeah, for sure. So, when people ask me what's my favorite recipe, it's so hard. I have like over 60 recipes currently now,
Wow.
which is crazy to me. We've been doing the Bottom Side just for 2 years now. My husband and I, we're business partners with the venture. So, I think it would have to be my very first recipe, which
Aw.
was my Alfredo. I actually chose that recipe intentionally, and now I have like a media breadcrumb trail of this recipe being on. So like
Uh-huh.
everyone could be like, okay, Alex has chosen this recipe every time, but it really is my favorite. So it's my Alfredo recipe. The Italians roll in their graves every time I bring this up because Alfredo is not a real Italian recipe,
Right.
but I never said it was.
Yeah.
I grew up in Houston, Texas. So Alfredo is actually the first recipe I learned how to cook for my mom, the real Alfredo, the very dairy heavy recipe. And for a very long time, I could not make it right. It curdled all the time. It just took me a very long time to learn how to make it right as a child. Because I said I've been cooking for a long time. And when I finally got it right, I just remember that moment as a kid so well, that I remember finally nailing the timing of it all and getting it well done. And when I started the Bottoms Digest, or like a few months beforehand anyways, when I was playing with recipes and all that, I made a completely dairy-free Alfredo that I had been making for a full year at that point.
You mastered it.
And yeah, like it was just, I'm lactose intolerant. I already eat half of the recipes you see on my channel on a normal day.
Mm.
And the Alfredo I had been eating for a full year before the Bombs Digest came out. And I made it for my mom, and she was just eating it. And she was like, I didn't tell her anything was different. And she was like, oh my God, this is the best you've made it. And I was like, girl, it's cauliflower. I was
Oh, you
like,
tricked, bitch.
yeah. And so when which she was like, you're an asshole. And I was like, no, I'm not. Your asshole is going to love me for the rest of the week
Yeah.
because this is completely dairy free and amazing. So when I posted that, it blew up immediately. I was really gagged because I was excited to start the Bombs Digest, but I didn't realize how big it was going to pop off right off the bat.
Yeah.
But I also love that recipe because it opened my eyes to people with IBS. I had not really ever take into account that community when doing this work. And a lot of people were telling me that they couldn't eat cauliflower
Oh,
because
wow.
of their IBS. So that created a whole new avenue for the Mom's Digest where like not every recipe can be IBS friendly, but it made me more aware that wow, our recipes can quite literally be bottom friendly now. We can make recipes for people that aren't even engaging in anal sex. They just want to not have to run to the bathroom after 20 minutes
Totally.
of eating something, or want dairy-free recipes or low FODMAP recipes, um, which low FODMAP, I won't go into that acronym, it's huge, but those are the foods that people with IBS eat.
Okay.
It's a type of sugar that in foods that are hard to digest for people with IBS. So cruciferous vegetables like cauliflower have those sugars. So that's why I really like that recipe, because it was an eye opener for a whole new lane of dishes and recipes we could create for our community. But also, it has a lot of heartstrings for me as one of the recipes I grew up cooking. But as far as testing goes, all of our recipes first get tested on me because I have a very sensitive stomach. I'm lactose intolerant as fuck. I have to, if it will pass through me, like pass through me in a test wise,
Right.
not pass through my body,
Right.
then we're good. I will push it along to my test group. So for context, the first year the Bombs Digest was in Texas. And when I was in Texas, I had a strong community of queer people. It was a mix of women, trans people, and just general queer gay men, stuff like that, that were in my test group. And so I would test a recipe on me, and then I would push it off to them to test for phase 2. And if it passed 9 out of 10 of them, there were 10 people in the test group.
9 out of
I would
10. That's high.
Yeah, it is high. I wanted it to be high on purpose because this information is not accessible to people currently. And I'm not rich, so I wish I could be 100 people, but that's just unfortunately not
10 is
happening right
good. I
now.
think personally, like hearing that, I think 10 is really high to me.
Thank you. And I wanted trans people to be in my test group for obvious reasons, because I want to make content for trans people as well. But trans people are usually on hormones and they're on medications and whatnot. So I wanted to make sure that these recipes were still working
Mm-hmm.
with their medications. But also I had women in my test group because I had lesbian women that love to peg each other
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. So I wanted a diverse test group because that's really what my channel was made for, was for all people that want a bottom. So if it passed 9 out of 10 of them, then I would publish it on my channel. We moved the Bottoms Digest to Chicago last April. We're hitting a year here now. And the test group has been a little lighter here because we're playing with new ways to test
Mm.
our recipes. And I'm potentially going to start sending my written recipes to people all over and have them not only test the recipe itself, but testing the complexity of it. So, was it too hard to make? Because if that was a problem, then we can nix it right away. So, that's kind of where we're moving in testing. Right now, I have a very small test group. I'm potentially about to grow it again because I have a lot of great followers here in Chicago, and I would love to just start working with them as being a part of our test group. But I would also love to potentially start testing, just sending the recipe to people in other states and other countries and all that.
Yeah.
and ask them to make it and test it on themselves.
Ooh, other countries is interesting too, because if they don't have access to the same exact type of ingredients, like
100%.
what can they replace it with?
100%. Like, for instance, my Italian followers, I have quite a few Italian followers, funny enough, and a lot of them don't have any problems with dairy. Italian dairy is way higher quality. They grew up eating it very consistently, a very high quality product. And they have a much harder time finding the non-dairy products that I push.
Interesting.
So, if they test if they test my recipes with their whole milk, heavy, high quality Italian dairy products, and they still have no problems and all that, that's a whole new lesson learned there. And we can start to apply that information into our written recipes on our website. But for now, I want to make sure we have the funding before we do stuff like that, because
Sure.
I want to pay people for that time
Right.
and pay them for their effort, because I don't want to be like, hey, test this for me for free so I can go benefit from it. I
Sure,
want to be able
sure.
to so that's kind of like the next phase. But right now we're rebuilding a solid test group here in Chicago, um, taking a lot of the lessons we've learned from our first dozen recipes and applying them. And while we're still building that test group, we repost older recipes and whatnot. So yeah, that's kind of our process. We try to make it as ethical as possible, because this isn't easy to find.
It's really awesome. Yeah, I think like you do really do it. Again, I said this before, but I like to cook, but cooking makes me a little nervous. I don't know why. Like, okay, for example, I live in a co-op with my fiance, so we have our own like one bedroom apartment, but we're like on a property and we share a big kitchen. We have our own kitchen, but we also have a really big kitchen that we like go to dinner
That's
with,
so
and there are
cool.
like 17 people, right? And you sign
Wow.
up like 1 to 2 times. You would be fucking awesome at this, but you sign up like 1 to 2 times a month and you cook dinner for everybody, for like all
uh
17 people.
I'm doing that when I
Oh
visit
my
you.
God, you really must. I will, they cover the cost and everyone pays dues and whatever. And so
Yes.
today, like for example, I'm making veggie pizzas, like me and one other person who's
That's
actually sous
awesome.
chefing for me. I'm like going to the grocery store, buying it up, thinking about it like, oh, I'm cooking for a party, right? It's like I'm making
Right.
4 pizzas or something. And I know that when I'm doing it, it'll be fine. But I think I have this cooking anxiety where I just get nervous that
Totally.
it's going to fucking turn out terrible. Do you have any advice for people like who want to bottom, or not, who want to just like cook better meals for themselves to not have that anxiety? I'm sure other people feel it too.
Totally. So breathe more first
Good,
off.
good start.
breathe more and start light with technique.
Mm,
That's so important. So I've been cooking forever. I actually almost went to culinary school a long time ago. And I remember that all the time, that not everyone likes to cook like that.
yeah.
So I try to remember that when I make my recipes. Is like, don't get crazy. I'm sure you saw this on my page the other day. I called out a lot of the cooking bros that are just like doing the
Oh
most.
yeah.
I saw this guy like making scrambled eggs. He like parboiled the eggs, blended the eggs with cream, put that in a whipper, like a
Oh,
whip canister, whipped it out. Like, I was just like,
just
dude,
crack it in the pan and put the fucking
fuck
fork in it.
you. Like, fuck you. Like, the French are rolling in their graves now too. Like, no, 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 no. So start light. Like for me, making a chicken salad, like a grilled chicken breast on salad,
Hmm.
you learn so many things with that alone. How to cook your chicken breast right. Did you season it ahead of time? How to make a simple salad dressing? How to cut the things that you're putting in your salad,
Hmm.
like cucumber and tomatoes and bell pepper, like dicing techniques.
Right.
And then you start to realize, like, oh, wow, all that anxiety was because of the lack of technique knowledge.
Totally.
Like for the pizzas, how am I rolling out this dough? Holy shit. And it's like, no, girl, go buy store
That's
bought.
what
Like,
I'm gonna do for sure.
exactly. So like when you start to like realize what the pieces are that are giving you anxiety, you can find shortcuts
Yeah.
instead. Like, I think that's why like people love Ina Garden, but Ina Garden doesn't make things very accessible. She's
Mm,
always like, use good olive oil. And it's like, girl, what is good olive oil then?
right.
Can you define that?
Right.
Can you give us a definition? So yeah, the anxiety is just like, take a deep breath, start with chill
Simple.
recipes.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
good.
like I think a lot of people are like, "Oh, I'm gonna make a souffle," and I'm like, "Okay, you literally picked the most complex thing right off the bat."
Right.
I don't know what to tell you. Like a galette is an easy dessert. You buy store bought puff pastry
Mm,
dough, you roll it out, you crimp the edges up, and you dump fruit in it,
great.
and you bake it.
Great.
Like start simple, and if there are a million steps, that means it's hard.
Totally.
Like that means it's hard. Like if there's a million ingredients broken down into multiple sections, that means it's hard. So those are some of the most accessible tips. Is just, I know it sounds very like, okay, I could have thought of that myself, but
No, 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 that is helpful from someone who cooks a lot. And I think to shift back to this whole idea of eating foods that are not only good for your body but good for your bottoming, if they're wanting to do that, what are some foods that maybe someone should avoid completely a couple hours before they're bottoming?
totally. So I love this question, and I've been really rethinking this question when I get it lately because of, again, Tim Spector, who I mentioned earlier. Food for Life is his book that I'm reading right now that is just phenomenal, and it's really changing the way I answer this question, funny enough. So with bottoming, I still have some solid answers, but I always preface this. We all have different
Yes.
bodies.
Yes.
Always listen to your body. I really think it's very vital to eat healthy things on days that you know you're not having sex. Like I know that that's not always predictable, of course, but at least you tried and you gave it a shot, because then you know how your body reacts to those things.
Hmm.
Because a lot of the things I'm about to say that you should try to avoid before bottoming, again, if your body doesn't agree with these, is they're very good for you and you shouldn't give them up for good, some of them. So first on that list is cruciferous vegetables like cauliflower, broccoli, Brussels sprouts. There are exceptions that I have found, like kale doesn't give me any problems, but broccoli, dead. I'm dead all day. I'm out of commission all day. It's not happening. But I have found that if I buy organic broccoli, not as many problems. So
Huh.
that's why it's like it's
Test
really
it.
nuanced. Yeah, you need to know these things about yourself. But cruciferous vegetables are one of the healthiest things on the planet. So you should not give them up for life just to get your freak on.
Right.
Like that's ridiculous. So give them up for the day of, if you especially know they cause you problems. Um, but if you're not fucking today, you should eat them and see how you react to them. The next one up is for sure dairy. Dairy gives a lot of people problems. Again, if you're in other countries, this seems to be a uniquely American
I
problem because
understand. Yeah, because our
our
farming, we pump the hormones and
yeah, our cows are like a problem here, big time. Um, so that's why it's really important to know if it really causes you that kind of problem. But dairy has no fiber in it, no matter where you're living. So that's one of the problem. That's one of the reasons it can be a problem, is it can cause a lot of havoc in the in the prep arena when you're in the bathroom trying to get ready. But there's of course like exceptions, like full fat yogurts and kefir, which is like that fermented milk drink. Um, there seems to be a lot of studies out there that that's really good on your gut health. So days you're not bottoming, go for it. You should have those because that's good for your overall health.
mhm.
But there are definite red flag ones, like artificial sweeteners are a big one.
Oh,
They cause like gas and bloating in everybody.
interesting.
Yeah, like Splenda is like a big one. But another one is UPFs, which are ultra processed foods. So I'm gonna keep shouting out Tim Spector because I love to shout out scientists and doctors. Like I'm just the
The
slutty whore.
messenger,
I'm the
the
slutty whore
slutty
chef that
messenger.
is bringing you the tea. Like I'm just bringing the tea.
Love it.
I'm bringing the teapot and I'm pouring it into your little teacup.
Great.
But Tim Spector he gives out a really great example of what ultra processed foods are. So take a quart of whole milk that is not very processed. Take a thing of yogurt that is plain yogurt that's minimally processed. Take yogurt that has fake fruit, sugar, all these colorings, all that, that's ultra processed. So those are like the three layers. And all the snacks on the shelves, like chips and like the just all the junk food, really, those are all ultra processed foods. So you have to find like a balance though, because again, I'm not going to tell you to quit those things for life.
Right.
Like some people are like, fuck you, I want my chips. And it's like, okay, well, that's fine, but like balance it out,
Right.
balance these things out. So ultra processed foods are a really big one to keep an eye out for. Frozen TV dinners are an ultra processed food. Like things like that are just, you're better off buying a bag of frozen broccoli and cooking the food that would have gone on the sides. Like it's better to buy those ingredients all frozen individually and make it at home rather than buying a TV dinner of it made.
That's good. That is good advice. I feel like we even like, Trader Joe's, and like I love Trader Joe's, but like, and I love
Right.
their frozen stuff, but yeah, for sure that stuff is very
Yeah.
processed.
Trader Joe's is like the king of ultra processed food. So like, I mean, I'm not gonna even go up against that behemoth of a like there's no defeating Trader Joe's.
Right.
People love it. I love Trader Joe's too, but like countless
A lot of
snacks.
products.
Yeah, so many. And I mean, like, even when you go like to their peanut butters, there's like one regular peanut butter, and then there's like 20 ultra processed peanut butters that have all these damn flavors and all these things in them. And it's just like, you have to be aware of those because your gut health will be extremely upset by all of the additives in those foods. And that's what can cause the gas and bloating, diarrhea. It can make your stool not very, like it can cause a lot of problems.
Totally. Yeah. Yes. Wow. I've learned so much from you today. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. I can't believe how much I know about this.
You're a wealth of knowledge, a fountain. And yeah, I wonder if you can just kind of share like a few more things while we still have you, which is
absolutely,
what do you really hope that people like ultimately walk away with when they are kind of seeing your content and understanding what you're teaching them, and how do you think it's hopefully changed the way that people think about eating and bottoming?
Wow, I love this question because I take this into account honestly every day when I create something. And I think that especially like about a year ago when I had hit my 1 year mark with the Bottoms Digest, and I was really like figuring out, okay, how do I want to keep doing this content? Because I don't want to make every video about just bottoming at this point where I'm like, oh, I've even asked my audience, like, do y'all want recipes for days that you're not bottoming? And that's been overwhelmingly a yes.
Yeah.
And like things that are just overall good for you and healthy. And I think the biggest thing that I want from my audience is just to gain a stronger sense of self and a stronger sense of like, what foods make me feel like that bitch? What foods make me feel awful? Am I willing to feel awful every once in a while because I love that food? Like the fact that you're even asking yourself those questions, that's, you're already becoming more in tune with yourself. And like RuPaul says, I know this is corny, but if you can't love yourself, how the hell are you gonna love someone else? So like, if you can't ask yourself these questions and communicate with yourself how you're feeling and all that, how the hell are you going to communicate with a partner in the bedroom that you're not feeling comfortable, you're not enjoying something? Like taking that time to communicate with your internal thoughts about how something's making you feel is a vital step. So that's kind of what I want my channel to really teach people, is like to evaluate recipes and be like, oh, this thing doesn't work for me, I'm going to swap that out with something else. That is a huge win right away.
Totally.
Because you're already doing my number one goal, which I do not preach about constantly because then it'll make it preachy, is to not starve before bottoming. Like that is so harmful. And it's just made up. I know it's made up in our community. And it's honestly because of toxic white patriarchal masculinity. Like the list goes on. It's all because of that bullshit. And I just want to combat that so much. The fact that you can enjoy food and sex. Like
and
there is no reason.
You
should. In fact, if you don't, you will die. Like if you don't eat there is scientific
You need it.
evidence that you don't
You
live.
need it.
So
Yeah, that's what I've heard. You need it. You need it.
yeah,
And
so
food is special, right? Like it really brings people together. It can make you feel really good. It can make you feel so much pleasure and joy. And it's fun. It's great.
it's so special. It kills me because people, especially like I'm honing on gay men for this one particular part. They make these dumbass jokes about starving
Mm.
before bottoming, but then go to brunch and have some of the best memories of going to drag brunches. And I've seen you bitches eating at these drag brunches, so don't joke. And that is important. Like, it's fun to like go and do these and eat together and get drunk together and all that. And I know a lot of them are bottoming afterwards. Let's be real.
Totally.
So these jokes about starving beforehand, they're extremely harmful. And when someone, if I was 16 and I had landed on TikTok with this joke about starving beforehand, I may have thought that
It would
that
have
was what I
impacted
had
you.
to have done.
Totally.
I may have thought that that was actually a requirement in order to do so.
Right.
So that is why I just really want my channel to just destroy that myth.
Yes. And yeah, again, I love your content so much. It's so wonderful.
Thank
I'm
you.
so lucky to know you as a friend now. And
Oh,
I wonder if you could just share, like what are you kind of working on next and where can our followers find you?
yeah. So hopefully working on a cookbook next. I've been in
Yeah.
talks with a book agency for a minute now.
Amazing.
But y'all know how it goes. These contracts are long.
Take forever.
And I know, I'm like, ugh, it's like, come on, just send a one pager.
Right.
It's a fucking, but whatever. So hopefully a cookbook that's been very demanded from my audience, and I love it. My background as a graphic designer, that's gonna be super fun
amazing.
to do. So I cannot wait. But just a really campy sex ed cookbook. I'm also revitalizing my YouTube currently. If you're familiar with like Strangers or People of New York,
Oh yeah.
I really want to do something similar, but like it meets Pit Stop from Drag Race, where it's like a drag queen sitting across from another drag queen interviewing them.
Amazing.
I really want to meld those worlds together with my YouTube and really start bringing other people, famous and not famous, that are that bottom, and I want them to come on and talk to me about their experiences,
Love it.
their times combating shame, what they've done to laugh off stuff, what they've done to not laugh off stuff, like, so that it's not just me all the time talking to people. I really want people to start seeing other perspectives. So
You should call it Get to the Bottom of It.
yes, oh my god. So I know, like, thank you for that, because we had a great name and then we found out it was taken.
If you
and that happens.
please, think on it.
I'll send you some royalties, don't you worry. And then, so like, I just really want to be so much more collaborative in the next ongoing future. Like, it's been super fun for the last 2 years, but it's called the Bottoms Digest, not Alex's Digest. So I'm really just trying to get back to being the host of the Bottoms Digest, where I talk to a lot of other people. And maybe even a podcast down the road. Who knows?
Oh, that'd be amazing.
That's been highly requested too. So I think that that'll be a really great space to also, again, talk to a lot of people about what they've done. I think it'd be fun to do a podcast where we talk about the times we've quite literally had to check people that we're topping. So on that note, you can catch me on TikTok at Bottoms Digest. You can catch me on Instagram at Bottoms Digest. Same with my YouTube. My website is thebottomsdigest.com. That's where all my recipes live. I'm about to put resources up on my website a lot more. And yeah, I'm also on Twitter, but God knows where the fuck Twitter is going to be in the next year. So you can follow me there. Yeah, you can follow me there. But to be honest with you, I've been a little hesitant because Elon is not making it easy on us.
No,
so
it's a very scary world there. But nonetheless,
maybe
yeah,
he should try bottoming.
Yeah, maybe he should. Maybe we should write into him and let him know that. Well, Alex,
shove a Tesla up his ass.
On that very strange and unexpected note, Alex, thank you so much for being on. This has been so wonderful chatting with you. I really appreciate it.
Yay. Thank you so much, Danielle. You're the best. I appreciate it.
Our creator, host, and executive producer is me, Danielle Bezalel. Our producer and communications lead is Catherine Cohen. Our associate producer and communications coordinator is Sadie Ligi. Our marketing coordinator is Kate Fiala. Our music theme is by Hook Sounds. Thanks so much to our featured guests, partners, and listeners. Want to partner with us? Email us at sexedwithdb@gmail.com. For more sex ed content, follow us on Instagram at sexedwithdbpodcast and on TikTok at sexedwithdb. For exclusive content and to submit an anonymous sex ed question, check out my new podcast on Fridays, Curious Sex Ed, hosted with Mariah Caudillo of Sex Ed Files. Go to buymeacoffee.com/CuriousSexEd to learn more. See you next time.